Hello and welcome everyone to the part 2 of the Unreal Engine Material series. I'm Sporsho from Dressrosa Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how you can rotate your texture, add a panner, and add emissive functionalities to your material. Let's get started. And the first thing we're going to learn is how we can rotate our texture. So what we're going to want to bring in is a custom rotator. Alright, after bringing that in, I'm just going to connect this to the UV channel of the albedo, and you're going to notice that our texture does not look right. So in order to fix that, we're going to need a texture coordinate node. I'm going to hold on U and left click to get a texture coordinate node, and I'm just going to plug it in the UV channel. And then after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a scalar parameter to this rotation angle. So let's do that. So I'm going to hold on S and left click to bring in a scalar parameter. I'm just going to call this rotation angle and plug this in. So nothing is happening right now. So if I go back to my viewport and change the value over here, you're going to see that it is rotating. Alright, so you're going to notice that it is rotating from the center of the 3D object that I have. So you might not want that in some specific cases. So we can change the rotation center as well. So if I go over here and add a append vector to my rotation center, it's going to throw up an error. But to fix that, we're going to bring in two scalar parameters. So I'm just going to hold down S and left click and call this rotation center X, and I'm just going to duplicate this and call this rotation center Y. Alright, I'm just going to plug this in and see what this does. So if I change the default value of the X and now rotate, you're going to see it is rotating from a different center. So I think it's rotating from here right now. Yeah, somewhere around here, I guess. And if I change the rotation center of the Y as well, say something like 12, and you're going to notice that this is rotating from a different center of mass. So yeah, so this is just a quick way to change the pivot point of your rotation. So the default for this is going to be 0.5 for this and 0.5 for the Y as well. So I'm just going to keep it like that. Oh, sorry, my bad. 0.5. So you can see we're back to normal again. So after that is done, we don't want to create this every time. So what we are going to need to do is we're going to need to copy all of our parameters just like so. I'm just going to leave out the texture coordinate here because we already have a texture coordinate here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this and open up our texture adjustments material function, and I'm just going to paste all of this over here just like so. Oh, I think I left this one out. Let's copy this as well, connect this. So what we're going to want to do is we have to connect our rotation before we change our tile and our offset, because if you do it after you change the tiles and the offset, it's not going to give you a proper result. So the rotation has to come first. So let's do that. I'm just going to connect this to my UV and connect my rotated values to the A of the multiply. and then I'm going to hit save. And now if I go back to my scene and open up the material instance for this, I'm going to see the option for my rotation pop up over here. So I can enable this and change the rotation angle from here. So right now all of our rotation settings are under global scalar parameter values, but we want to make a separate group for them. So let's just go back to our material function, and I'm just going to highlight all of my scalar parameters for the rotation, and I'm just going to create a new group from here. I'm just going to call it rotation. Just do a little bit of organizing over here so it looks cleaner. So if I go back to my material instance, you're going to see this is now nicely grouped under rotation. So now I can get rid of all of this from here and just connect my texture adjustments node to my albedo, and that's it for the rotation. Okay, let's create a panner. So if I go back to my material function over here, and if I look for panner, you're going to see that this node has coordinate, time, and speed. So what the coordinate does is this is going to plug into the texture coordinate, and the time is going to determine for how long the panning is going to happen, and the speed is self-explanatory. So let's grab the output from our add node and plug this into our coordinate, and I'm just going to plug this into our output result and hit save. You're going to notice nothing is happening. This is because the speed is set to 0. Let's try something like 0.1 and hit save. You're going to notice that our texture is rotating, but we want to be able to control our speed through our material instance. So let's do that. So I'm just going to bring in a append vector over here and connect this to my speed, and I'm just going to hold down S and left click to bring in a scalar parameter. I'm just going to name this speed X. So I'm going to copy this and rename this to speed Y and plug this in just like so. And now if I go back to my material instance, I'm going to see there's an option to change the rotation speed. So if I click on this and set this to 0.1, it starts rotating. So to control the duration of the rotation, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look for a node called time and connect this to time. And if I go to the details, you're going to see there is something called period. So right now it's set to 0, and if I enable this, you're going to see there is a message saying stop. So if I hit save and now give this speed a value, you're going to notice that nothing is changing because the time is set to 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this to 1 second. So you should keep this in mind that the unit for the time is in seconds in Unreal. Okay, let's hit save and go back to our material instance. So you're going to notice that it's rotating for 1 second and it's resetting again. So this is going to rotate for 1 second and it's going to reset again. So for now, we don't need to use this period. So I'm just going to disable this and hit save. So let's create a group for this speed. So I'm just going to call this pan. And we're not going to be needing this functionality for every single material that we're going to be using. So we want a functionality that enables or disables the functionality of the panner. So let's see how we can do that. We're going to right click and search for a static switch parameter. Alright, and I'm just going to call this is panning, and I'm just going to plug in my panner into the true and just connect this to the output, And for the false, we're just going to exclude the panner and grab the output from the add and connect this to the false. And for the default value is going to be set to false. So what this static switch parameter does is this switches between two paths that our material graph is taking. If I move this, you're going to see that the path that is connected to the true includes the panner, and the pin that is connected to the false does not include the add. So if I go back to my material instance, I'm going to see there's an option called is panning. If I enable this, you get these two parameters. Now you can control the speed from over here. Alright, let's also organize this inside panner as well. So I'm just going to select this and group this inside panner. Alright. So you might ask that why do I need to use a panner? Well, I'm glad that you asked that question. So if you have something like water in your scene, you want it to be moving. So by adding a panner, you can replicate the flow of water. So let me show you an example of this. So I'm just going to try and replicate the movement of lava. So I'm just going to, so I already have a lava texture. I'm just going to select this and put this in here. And for the normal map, we can use water normal, I guess. So if I click on here, this should do the job, because I don't have a proper lava normal with me right now. So I'm just going to use this, and you should have this water normal inside your starter content. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find my material instance. I'm just going to put this onto the floor. You obviously can see this does not look right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some adjustments. I'm just going to change the tiling to 8 by 8. I mean, this looks fine for now. Alright, let's do the pan. So in the X direction, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do 0.1. So you're going to see the lava is moving. So this is how you can use the panner. This actually brings us to a very important topic that I haven't touched on the previous video. That is emissives. Our lava should be glowing, but we don't see anything glowing over here. If I go over to someplace dark, you're going to notice this even more, that this is not glowing. So we can use emissives to make this lava glowing. So let's do just that. So if I go over to my material over here, we're going to see there is a channel for emissive color. Right now this is empty. So what I'm going to do is click on S and left click to bring in a scale parameter, and I'm just going to call this emissive intensity. And if I connect this to my emissive color and hit save and go over to my instance, I'm going to see there's an option to change my emissive intensity. So if I enable this and put a value of 1, you're going to see that the floor is glowing right now, but we don't see our texture. So in order to fix this, I'm just going to bring in a multiply. I'm going to hit M and left click and connect this to the B channel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on T and left click to bring in a texture sample. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect my RGB color to the A and connect this to my emissive color. and I'm just going to apply my lava texture over here. You're going to notice that the texture that we're using is glowing right now, but it does not have any of our texture adjustments. So let's fix that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect my texture adjustments to the UV and hit save. Now what you're going to notice is that our lava is now glowing, but the problem is this is glowing very uniformly. We really don't want this. So in order to fix that, what I'm going to do is, if I go over to my texture, just like so, I'm going to see there are 3 channels over here, and I'm just going to disable each channel and see what this is containing. So in the red channel, you're going to see this is a black and white texture, and if I disable this and enable the green channel, you're going to see that this contains only the highlights, and in the blue channel this also contains a alpha mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to my advantage and use this texture as a alpha texture. And by alpha texture I mean a black and white texture that we can use to control the values of different parts of the texture. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this texture, and I'm just going to bring in a multiply and connect the red channel to the A and connect my emissive intensity to the B, and I'm just going to replace it with the multiply. Let's just connect all the UVs and hit save. Now if I go back to my example, if I increase the emissive intensity now, you're going to see the yellow parts over here are more bright than the other parts. So this is how you can selectively control the brightness of your texture. We want to use this texture, so we want the functionality to change your texture on the material instance. So I'm just going to convert these two to parameters. I'm just going to call this emissive mask and call this emissive texture. So if I hit save, you're going to notice that there is an option to change our emissive mask and our emissive texture. So one thing to mention that sometimes you might not have a texture that is packed into the red channel, or you might have a texture that is separate. So let's just bring in a normal alpha texture. So in this case, you might want to use the entire RGB channel, but if you have a structure like this, you cannot use this. So let's fix that. So in order to fix that, what I'm going to do is search for a component mask, and I'm just going to convert this to a parameter, and I'm just going to call it emissive component mask, and I'm just going to plug this RGB to the multiply. So if I click on this, you're going to see there are 4 channels over here: the red channel, green channel, the blue channel, and the alpha channel. So from here you can enable all 3, or you can just choose between one, and it should work. So this is a easy way to do this that does not require you to come over here every time and change the channels from here. So if I hit save and go to my material instance, you're going to see I have the option to change my component mask. So in here, what I can do is I can just disable this, or enable all 3 channels, or only one channel, just like so. So we might not want this emissive control for every material. So let's just bring in a switch to enable or disable this whenever we want it. So I'm just going to search for a static switch parameter, and I'm just going to call this is emissive, and I'm just going to connect this to my true, and for the false this is just going to be a constant value of 0. So if I hold down 1 and left click, this is going to bring in a constant, and let's connect this to the false. So now I'm just going to connect this to my emissive color and hit save. Now if I go over here, you're going to see there's an option to enable disable the emissive. So if I enable this, we get all of our options back. Now let's just quickly organize this. I'm just going to group all of my textures and my parameters just like so. Give them a new group called emissive, also this as well, and hit save. And all of these should be grouped under emissive right now. So that's it for this video. If you guys like the video, then hit like, and for more content like this, hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.